for fun, just to make sure we still know the system on how to do it. What the hell, practice. Okay, let's talk about the first part here, how to build your pipeline, how to build your pipeline. So I have a list of thoughts here I wrote down on how to build your pipeline. Some of the stuff are things you've heard before. Some of the stuff maybe you haven't heard before. Maybe it's a reminder. Maybe it's coming at it from a different angle. I don't know. But let's talk about this, how to build your pipeline. So the first thing I wrote down here on how to build your pipeline is you first need to identify who you want to be in your pipeline. You want to build your pipeline, you first need to identify who you want to be in your pipeline. So when Apple builds a product, do you think they have a general target audience when they're building a product and putting that together? Right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. They have a general target audience. You know, when any sort of sports team is putting together some sort of season ticket marketing plan and they're going to advertise it, do they have pretty much a target audience that they're going after that might be a candidate for this season ticket purchase? Yes. Okay. They do this in things like the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal has a target audience. The Robb Report has a target audience. You want to build your pipeline, you first have to identify who should be in your pipeline, who you want in your pipeline. So, couple of ideas to think of. How about is there a specific area of people you want to be in your pipeline? Meaning that are you focused on a specific city, a radius around a specific city, things along those lines? Or is it just my license is in California? Sure. Okay. And I want you to know here, everyone's answer is going to be different because part of this also depends on where you're at in your business. Those of you that are more seasoned can usually tighten this up a little bit. Those of you that are brand new, it's going to be a little looser, but you still need to identify it. What about price point? Are there certain price points you want in your pipeline? Is it possible? Let me ask you this. You're going to think of price points as the lowest. Is there a price point that's too high of an ideal pipeline? I mean, I just had a conversation with one of our agents that 2.5 million and above is 8 months on the market. So maybe in your area there's a too high of a price point. That's not your pipeline, which is hard, right? Because if somebody comes to you and wants to sell a $3 million house, that's hard to turn down, right? Hard to turn that listing down. $3 million. Gosh, even if I only got 2%, that's 60 grand. Woo, baby. Ladies are like, Jimmy Choo shoes and Louis Vuitton purse. Let's go. Robert, how do you know about those things? I'm married. I get it. Okay. I know who Jimmy Choo. I don't know. I know Jimmy Choo. Right? But maybe you have to look at that and go, you know what? That's not ideal for my pipeline because I know in my marketplace, $3 million is going to take this much time, this much effort, so on and so forth. So price point. What about the type of clientele? You know, what about a ratio between listings and buyers? Is that part of your identified pipeline? Because if you want to build a pipeline and you're thinking, well, gosh, I want to build a pipeline and I want it to be 50-50 buyers and sellers. Okay. I'm not at that stage in my career where I can only focus on listings, but I'd love it to be 50-50. Okay. Well, once you identify what the goal is, then we can create a plan to accomplish that. So there's little things that you have to identify first of who do you want in your pipeline? Because then you identify that and boom, now we build the plan. But you got to identify that. Everyone else in other industries identify who they want in their pipeline. Are there certain clientele that you don't want to deal with? Yes. Robert, you shouldn't judge people. Okay. You're right. I shouldn't judge people, but I do. And so do you. Okay. And don't try to be a saint and say you don't. Okay. Some of you judge less than others. I'll give you that. Okay. So you got to identify who you want in your pipeline. Now, after you identify who you want in your pipeline, now you got to create a plan. But here's the word. This is what you need to underline, highlight, put bold, caps, whatever you want to do. This is the most important word when it comes to how to build a pipeline, and that word is specific. You need to build a specific plan of action. After you identify who goes in your pipeline, you build a specific plan of action to go after that group. Let me give you an example of specific. All right, well, Robert, I want my pipeline to be 50% buyers, 50% sellers. All right, what are you going to do? I'm going to go door knock my neighborhood. Okay, that's great. But that's not a specific plan of action. Like, what's your plan? What's your pitch? What's your script? What do you really want to go after here? What do you want to do? I really want to I really want to go after empty nesters, older people that might be looking to downsize. Okay, great. Now that's a little bit more specific. Well, what are you going to do? Well, I'm just going to call. Who? Where? How? What are you going to say? Like, you need a specific plan of action to go after those people. So if you said, I want to go after empty nesters. Okay, well, what's your specific plan of action? Well, I'm going to go after empty nesters in a 10-mile radius of my office. Okay, great. So what's the next step? The next step is I'm going to get with Title and I'm going to have them get me a list of empty nesters within a 10-mile radius. And I could make it based on 2-story homes bought 20 or more years ago, 2,500 square foot homes bought 20 or more years ago. There's different factors, different algorithms, but I'm going to get that list. Okay, great. Now you got the list. You're going to door knock or you're going to call. I'm going to call them. Well, where are you going to get the phone numbers? I'm going to get a deal with Arch. Then I'm going to get phone numbers through Arch. Okay, you're going to hand dial or you're going to get a dialer. I don't want to pay for the dialer, so I'm going to hand dial. Okay, great. What are you going to say? I don't know. We've stuck. I don't know what I'm going to say. Okay, call Robert. He'll tell you. Promise you I have a script for it. And then it's like, okay, now I got the script. Okay, so now I got the script, I got the numbers, I got the audience. Now what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to call them. Okay, great. And then how often are you going to call them if they don't answer? Are you going to try to get them in your database? What's the follow-up plan? Specific plan of action. When you use vague and it's just, I'm just throwing it out to the world, I'm just seeing what happens, it doesn't hit as much. So let me give you an example of difference between vague and specific and the power of the two things. Has there ever been a time in your life where somebody comes to your home, so you know the area, and they say, hey, let's order some food for lunch, or let's go out to lunch. And they say, what's a good restaurant around here? And your mind goes blank, right? Where do you order pizza from? A pizza place? Because it's too vague. There's just too much. But if somebody came to you and said, hey, look, why don't we go out to lunch? I'm really craving some authentic Mexican food. I don't want to go too far, maybe in a couple block radius. Do you know of anyone? You're like, oh, yeah, let's go to Paco's. That place is great. Get the enchiladas and the horchata. It's like, oh, you gave me a specific target and I was able to, boom, nail it for you. But when you gave me a vague target, I couldn't think of anything. So now you have that specific target that you're going after. So then the next thing I wrote down here, after I do all that, and I wrote down the word tenacious. Now, I like the word tenacious. You might want to put aggressive. You might want to put fanatical, whatever you want to put. But I wrote down a tenacious follow-up. Well, tenacious lead follow-up? Well, maybe, but you should be tenacious following up even before they become a lead. You're building a pipeline. If you already have leads, the pipeline's being built. You got to go get the leads. Well, you have to have the same aggressive follow-up mentality when you're prospecting to get a lead, the same way you do when you have the final lead. Okay, I've got this list. We're going to stick on this empty nester thing. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to call them. They didn't answer. I'll call them again tomorrow. They didn't answer. I'll call them again tomorrow. They didn't answer. You know what? I'm going to go door knock them. I'm going to be tenacious, fanatical. I'm going to get in front of these people because I got to build my pipeline. So I'm going to get in front of them. I'm going to get them on the phone. I'm going to see if maybe I can get some email addresses, send them an email. Is there any way I can go on social media and do a boost and see if they can give me a target audience? If I got the money, maybe I'll send out a mailer, but I'm going to do it all. I'm getting in front. I have to be tenacious with getting in front of the people that I've identified belong on my pipeline. If people say, oh, I farm this area, what do? I do a mailer once a month. And what else? No, that's it. It's like, well, then just send me the money. Wasting it anyways. I'll go to Paco's and get enchiladas and a horchata. Okay? Send me the money. That's not tenacious. That's not aggressive. You identified who belongs in your pipeline. You got to go get it. Man, who here is married? Who here is married or in a serious relationship? Like, you identified the person you wanted to spend time with. You identified the person you wanted to date. Did you just go, well, we'll see if it works out? Hopefully they say hi to me. Or were you a little bit aggressive, right? Were you a little bit aggressive? Say, hey, let's get on a date. Let's do this. Let's do that. Oh, I like this. Let's do on a second date. Like, were you a little bit more receptive to it because you wanted to see this go further? As opposed to, anyone here ever been on a date where you knew 5 minutes in, you never wanted to see this person ever in the history of the rest of your life? Okay. I've been on both ends, by the way. Okay. I knew 5 minutes in, I didn't want to see that person. And I've been 5 minutes into the date knowing that she didn't want to see me. I've been on both ends. Okay. Well, when you're 5 minutes in and you know you don't want to see this person, I'm not going to be aggressive. Whatever. Right? Aggressive, tenacious. Find the person that you want to go after and then be tenacious and aggressive. Get in front of them. If that means you got to go to the door, then you go to the door. Okay. But you have to be tenacious with that. And then when you do get in contact with them, either at the door, the phone, or whatever the case may be, you keep that tenacious, aggressive mentality to do two things. One, find a deal. You want to build your pipeline, you have to find a deal every single time you're on a phone, every single time you're in a conversation. So here's what I wrote down this. You need to maximize your prospecting, maximize your contacts. Your contact should close the conversation first, whether it's hanging up the phone or closing the door. You should never close the conversation first. Is it hard? Let's be honest. Is it hard sometimes to get people on the phone? Yeah. Is it hard to get people to answer the door? I mean, it's 2024, it's nobody knocks on the door and who is it? Like, that's not what happens. People knock on the door and you back up. You're looking at your spouse. And we just talked. Did you order something? Did you order like DoorDash or Amazon? Did you let somebody in? Check the camera. Check the Ring camera. Who is it? So sometimes it's hard. Well, guess what? So when you get somebody, you want to build your pipeline, boy, when you get a contact, oh, I'm hanging on. No, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner. No. Don't you hang up that phone until I ask all my questions. Or do you know anyone who's thinking about buying or selling? No, don't hang up. What about you? Are you thinking about buying or selling? No, don't hang up yet. Do you own any investment properties? Are you thinking about buying an investment properties? What about a second home? Do you own any one of those? No. Okay. Do you know anyone who recently got married? Anyone who recently had a kid? Anyone who recently retired? Anyone who recently got divorced, bankrupt, lost their job? Anyone I mean, is this your 5-year plan to be in this property? Your 10-year plan? No, none of those types of things. Okay, great. Like just you could keep going. You know anyone who owns a condo might want to think about upgrading? You know anyone who's renting that might want to think about a first-time buyer? Now, I want you to know something. You'll never get through as many questions as I just got through, ever. But the point is, you want to build your pipeline, you have to exhaust every opportunity on the phone. There is no freaking way I am ending this conversation before you do, Mr. and Mrs. Client. So you either buckle in and we're going to town for 15, 20 minutes, or hang up the damn phone or close the door. But I'm going to keep going. That's how you build your pipeline. You got to look for every opportunity. Okay. So you maximize every single contact. You look for every single opportunity. I have a bunch of sample questions. I'll put them in the chat box when I'm done if y'all stick around to the end. Okay. But you look for every single opportunity to do that. You don't know where that's going to be. You don't know where that's going to end up. So then after that, the second part of it is on the aggressive tenacious is get them in your database. Where does the bulk of the business come from in real estate? Database. Past client center of influence. Well, if that's the bulk of your business, then if you want to build your pipeline, you need to keep feeding that database. You need to keep feeding that dinosaur. You got to keep doing that. So every single time I'm talking to somebody on the phone, one, I am not letting go. I'm exhausting every contact to find a deal. And number two, I'm going to get you in my database, or at least ask. Because why is it so important I got you in my database? Not only because I want to build my database, but my mindset has to be this. Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I chose you. I'm not just aimlessly wandering the streets. Okay. I was going to say something there. I'm not going to say it. I'm not just aimlessly wandering the streets. I chose you as my person. I chose you as my ideal person. And because I chose you, we have got to connect. We've got to stay together. So I'm not going to let you go. One of the things I do for other people in your neighborhood is keep them updated of what's going on in the marketplace. Would you like me to do the same thing for you? Because we're in this together, right? They say yes. Fantastic. If you have their phone number, that's easy. If you're at the door, get their phone number, get their email. But now I'm building up this database. I'm building up this database because that's where the bulk of the business comes from. Everybody with me so far? Okay. So now I've identified who should go in my pipeline. I've created a very specific plan of action. And if you need help with a specific plan of action, reach out to me. We'll come up with a specific plan of action for you, or anyone, I guess, in our company can help do that, right? But reach out. We'll create a specific plan of action. Now I've got a specific plan of action. Now I was tenacious with the follow-up to just get in front of them. And then I didn't let them go. I exhausted every opportunity. I maximized my contact to find a deal. And then I got them into my database. Now I've got something cooking here. And then here's the next step. Repeat, 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 repeat. Because you did that for this group. Well, but you didn't get in contact with everybody in this group. So you keep going after this group. But then you say, hey, look it, I went after this group. Well, then what's my second per people that should be in my pipeline? Do I take this particular source and expand it out to 15 miles? Or do I say, I also want to target this? And then you repeat and you go through the cycle again with that next source, that next group of people. And then that's when you have 3 or 4 different plans. See, you ever been to a seminar and they say you need to have 3 or 4 different sources of business? Ever been to a seminar where they said that? Okay, great. Well, guess what? That only works if you do what I just talked about. Well, what are your sources of business? Well, I kind of do a little bit of the expireds. What the hell does that mean? Like, do you have a plan? Do you have an aggressive mentality to go after them? Oh, and I prospect my neighborhood. Okay, like doing what? See, the reason most people don't have 3 or 4 sources because you don't have that specific plan. You don't do what we just talked about. That's how you build up the 3 or 4 sources. And when you build that up, that's when you build up your pipeline. You got to be in front of these people. So the next thing I wrote down here, and then we'll get to how to weed out the crappy leads. You want to build up your pipeline. Is when you get them in your database, all that stuff we just talked about, that's still the beginning. Once you get them in the database, now you got to turn them into gold. All of this is to get people to your database. Every single thing you do in lead generation should have one goal, or to get a deal. No, it should be to get them in your database, because 80 to 90% of the deals come from the database, not from straight calls or door knocks or things like that. So if your mentality is, I'm going to this door to find a deal, I'm making this call to find a deal, you're setting yourself for massive failure. But if you accept the mentality is, I'm going to look for a deal, but my end game goal is to at least get them into my database, you're going to filter in more wins, more wins, more wins, which creates a better mentality, right? More positive atmosphere. Get them into your database. Then you get them into the database. Boom. Now the real work goes into play, and now you got to turn it into gold. So now it's like, okay, I've worked on building this up, build this up, build this up, build this up. Now I get them in my database. What's next? Well, now I got to turn it into gold. How do I turn it into gold? I got to be in front of them all the time in all avenues. I got to call them. I got to email them. I got to send them a mailer. If you're on social media, connect with them. Okay. Do pop buys. If you have your influencers, your top 10%, your top 10, your top 50, whatever, do pop buys. Go to the house, do face to face, take them to coffee, do a client appreciation, do whatever you want. But you got to be in front of them all the time. And then number two, you have to be the Energizer Bunny. You got to be the Energizer Bunny. You want to get more leads out of that database. Now you got to be the Energizer Bunny. Because do most people have in the world, do they tend to have really great positive energy? Would you say that's the majority of the world? No. Well, here's the golden rule of real estate. Whatever the masses are doing, turn 180 degrees and go that direction. That's the golden rule of real estate. That's why 80% of real estate agents close 3 or less deals a year. Okay. You got to do the golden rule, do the 180. Well, if everyone else is mopey and, oh, I don't have the energy and negativity and whatever, blah, blah, blah. If that's what everyone else is doing, you got to be the opposite. You got to be the Energizer Bunny. You got to be the one that smiles. It's not, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Fortunately, I have some really bad news about home prices in your area. I mean, do you have a minute to talk? Like, even if I did, I wouldn't talk to you. Okay, because you're miserable to talk to. Right? You got to be the Energizer Bunny. You got to be the exciting one. If they're not answering your phone calls, if they're not returning your text messages, it's because they're not excited to do that. Right? So you got to be the Energizer Bunny. And then you have to provide great value. Show that you know the market stats. Show that you know what's going on in the community. And you don't have to know a lot to sound like an expert. But you got to know something like that. So if I'm in front of them, I'm constantly providing great value. I'm constantly smiling, providing great energy. And then I'm asking for business. You want to build your pipeline, repeat after me. You don't have to unmute if you don't want to, but at least say ask for business. Okay, I see some of your lips moving, and others of you are, maybe your computer's frozen. I don't know. We want to build the pipeline. We've gotten all this built up, right? We've got all this momentum built up, all the things we just talked about. Now we're at that end. To build the pipeline, now you have to ask for business. Otherwise, the pipeline is never going to be built. There's no political ad that will run in the next 5 months that says, hey, you know what? If you're going to vote and you want to vote for me, that's okay. But if not, it's all right too. There's no political ad that's going to run in the next 4 months that's going to say that. If you know someone who's thinking about voting, and feel free to have them vote for me. That's what any political ad, every political ad say, get out there and vote for me. Get out there and vote for me. That's what they're saying. They're being direct. They're saying, get out there and vote for me. They're asking for you to go out there and give them the business. That's what you have to be. Okay, well, hey, great talking to you. By the way, if you ever know anyone who's thinking about buying or selling real estate, think of me. Yeah, okay, click. Because I've got nothing else going on in my life to have you at the top of my mind all the freaking time in every social network that I'm ever going to be in. All right. Robert said if I ever meet someone who's thinking about buying or selling real estate, I should think of him. All right. Well, we're going to a dinner party and there's going to be like 8 people there. So if anyone brings it up, I should make sure to think of him. That's no, no. Oh, I don't want to ask for business. Good. Go work in customer service. Plenty of jobs at Amazon. That's so mean. I hate when you say that. Well, then ask for business and I won't say it. By the way, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, hey, I really appreciate it. Hey, do you know anyone who's thinking about buying or selling a house? Who do you know that's thinking about buying or selling real estate? Who do you know that's thinking about buying or selling real estate? Who do you know? 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 Every single person knows a couple people that are going to buy or sell this year. Now, they might not know who they are, but in their phone, there's going to be a couple people that buy or sell real estate in the next 12 months. You need to train your database that when you say, who do you know? It's like, oh, well, I think so-and-so is. Great, give me their number. Who do you know? Who do you know? But the mentality, here's how you build the pipeline. The mentality has to be, you're not going to say this to them, but this is the mentality. I know you know somebody. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you are in my database. You're a friend, you're a family member, you're a past client, you're someone who I identified as someone I want in my database because you're my ideal type of client. You're in my database. I know in your cell phone, 2 or 3 people are going to buy or sell a house in the next 12 years. That has to be your mentality. So I'm asking you with confidence and strength, who do you know that's going to be buying or selling a house in the next 12 months? Not right now. Who do you know is going to buy or sell a house right now? I don't know who's buying a house today. Who do you know is thinking about buying or selling a house in the next 12 months? Well, Robert, why 12 months? Because you're going to need a deal in 12 months, I promise. 12 months from now, we'll be sitting here and you'll be like, I need a listing. I'm aware because we all do. That's not a shot at you. That's everybody. So I'm going to ask the question today, who do you know is thinking about buying or selling 12 months? And if I find someone that says, yep, we're buying in 12 months, cool. Guess what? I'm going to follow up with you. We're going to be best buddies. So 12 months from now, you're going to be buying with me. This is how you build a pipeline. You get aggressive. You get tenacious. If you're not going to get aggressive, if you're not going to be tenacious, if you're not going to be excited and energetic, and if you're not going to have that mentality of, let's go, I know you know somebody, I want you in my database. If you're not going to have that type of mentality, it's going to be really hard in 2024 and beyond to build that pipeline because the real estate market today is not for passive people. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be a driver. That doesn't mean you have to be mean or super direct. You can be amiable. You can be soft spoken. You can be that, but you can't let people walk all over you. You can't be passive and build a pipeline in 2024 and beyond. You can't do that. That's not the real estate world anymore. You got to be aggressive. You got to be tenacious. I don't like calling my database. Okay, great. Well, that's 80 to 90% of the business comes from your database. So if you don't want to ask your database for business, you are really, really hindering yourself. So you better get great at prospecting people you don't know, which is possible because that's how you build the database to begin with. But it's just going to take you a lot longer because you have this sense that you don't want to ask your database for business. I'm going to say something that some of you are not going to like, which is pretty normal. I don't understand why you're so protective of your database when the reality is there's only a couple people in there that are really good friends. It's truth. How many people are in your database? Well, I have 150. Great. Okay, you have the 5 people that are really friends. Leave them alone if you want to. call the other 145. They're not really friends. Robert, that's so sad and mean. Sorry. We're so protective of people. I don't want to call them when it's like they're not really that friends of yours. They're acquaintances. Maybe they were friends at one time. You got your core group, right? Don't be so protective of everybody else. Because if they say, I can't believe you'd ask me that, see, my life's gonna be just fine without you. We good. Okay. I ain't worried about that. You got that on building your database, building your pipeline? All right. So then the second part of this was, how do you weed out crappy leads faster? How do you weed out crappy leads faster? Okay. Well, it's a lot of the same stuff. How do I weed out the crappy leads faster? Well, I can't weed out crappy leads if I don't identify the type of leads I want in my pipeline. Because if I've identified who I want in my pipeline, it's pretty easy for me to say, you know what, I got this lead because it was a referral, but they don't really match the type of person I want in my pipeline. So if it's not super perfect and super clean, they're gone. I can weed them out because I already know what my ideal pipeline is. The second thing on weeding out crappy leads goes back to being tenacious, aggressive. Not only am I going to be tenacious on lead follow-up to turn this lead into a deal, I'm also tenacious to find out if I should even keep following up. This is something, God damn it, I hope everyone can hear what I just said, because this is really important. This is really important. Okay? This is really important. Lead follow-up is not only about converting a lead to an appointment. Lead follow-up is also deciding if I should keep following up with this lead. People only do lead follow-up to get it to an appointment. Yeah, I get that, but that's not the only purpose of lead follow-up. I'm going to do aggressive lead follow-up because I'm not only pre-qualifying you to see if you're a candidate to actually buy or sell a house, I'm pre-qualifying you to see if you're a candidate to work with me. You got to earn my time. So you got to have that lead follow-up mentality. That's why it has to be aggressive. That's why it has to be tenacious, fanatical, whatever word you want. Because I'm going after you. And if you're not matching my level of intensity, if you're not matching my level of excitement, then that's fine. Buying and selling a house is a really big deal. It's nothing personal. But guess what? You got to go. Because I only want people that are matching me. I only want people that I'm ready to get you into a house today. Are you ready to buy a house today? I'm ready. I'm ready to go show you. I'm ready to list your house. I'll be there today at 4 o'clock. I'll list it today and get it on the market this weekend. I'm ready. Are you ready? That's what I'm doing aggressively follow up. I want to see if you're ready for me, not just, oh God, I'm trying to get this deal. No, no, no. You want to weed out crappy leads faster. That's the mentality you have to have. Now, again, I'm not saying be rude. I'm not saying be mean. I'm not saying throw away everything. And you got to decide what's best in your business. But if you want to weed out crappy leads faster, you have to have that mentality. Because when you have that mentality, you'll get rid of crappy leads really fast because you'll realize, hey, look it, I'm following up with this person. I'm ready to go. I'm giving them all the information and they're giving me back. Next, beat it. You're not worth my time. It's nothing personal because buying or selling a house is a big deal. So it's not a personal thing, but on my lead board, next, out. You got to match me. So I'm going to be aggressive in my lead follow-up, not only convert to an appointment, find out if we're a good match or not. And then there's no right system for this, but you have to figure out your system of every time you get a lead, you got to set an expiration date on that lead. You want to weed out crappy leads faster, you need to know what the expiration date is. And then follow through with that expiration date. But up to that expiration date, you have to make sure you're giving that lead every opportunity to connect with you. See, one of the reasons we don't throw out crappy leads is because we haven't done enough on the aggressive follow-up part to feel like Well, we've given them every opportunity to turn us down. So let's say a week. You tell me you're interested in buying or selling a house. Now here, let me back up here for a second. Before you throw away crappy leads, you need to first figure out what their time frame is. So, oh, you're interested in selling your house. Great, Mr. Marcella, I'm curious. So are you looking to sell this house in the next 30 days, the next 3 months, or are you in the next 3 to 9 months or 9 months plus? Which category would you say you're in? Oh, we're in the next, probably 3 to 9 months. Then it's not really a lead right now anyways. So you don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to be tenacious. They're not selling a house for 3 to 9 months, 9+ months. So first of all, you need to get leads off your board that are not really leads. Put them on their lead board when they actually become a lead. But when they get there, they get on that lead, then it's like, okay, what's my lead follow-up plan before I throw them out? You're interested in buying or selling a house the next couple months? Great, let's get together. Let's talk about it. Follow up with me on Tuesday. Okay, cool. I'll follow up with you on Tuesday. You don't answer. I leave you a message. I'll follow up with you again on Wednesday. You don't answer. I'll leave a message. I'll maybe send a text message Thursday. You don't respond. I'll call you again Friday. I leave you a message. You don't respond. I'll send you an email over the weekend. Monday comes around. You didn't respond. I'm like, dude, I contacted you 5 times in 3 different formats. You didn't have the courtesy to get back to me. See ya. Next. Next. You know how easy it is to get a hold of me? Text me, email me, call me, send me, comment on one of my social media posts, DM me. Next. You gotta have standards. So that's how you weed out some of these crappy leads, but then you figure out the motivation. But then you also have to ask questions with these leads. So here's how you figure out some of the crappy leads as well. Okay. Last couple points here. I know we're at 1 o'clock. Last couple points. Okay. On how to weed out crappy leads. You have to ask disqualifying questions. You're not trying to disqualify the lead. You want to qualify the lead. But let me give you an example. How do I weed out crappy leads? I'm curious, what are some of your concerns about buying a house right now? Because you get a buyer lead and they say, oh, yeah, we're looking to buy a house, 750,000, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2,600 square feet, 7,000 square foot lot. You're like, okay, cool. We could do that out here. Yeah. We got it. They're on my lead board. And then they're not answering. They're not responding. They're not doing all these things. But you're like, oh, but they had such specifics. And the problem is you didn't ask them, what are your concerns about buying a house? Well, I am convinced that prices are going to drop about 20% in the next 12 months. Next. But if you don't ask those questions, well, I want to wait to see what happens with the election. Next. Because here's the thing you need to know about leads and weeding out crappy leads. And I've said this 100 times, and I'll keep saying it forever. Waiters will wait forever. So when you're talking to a lead and you're doing lead follow-up and they keep giving you an excuse, get rid of them. We hold on to crappy leads because we keep thinking they're going to turn into something and they keep giving us all. Well, why? Okay, so you're interested in buying a house? Yeah, but I want to wait for prices to go down. Okay. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Buyers, want to let you know prices. I just got the stats for July, and prices are up 8% compared to this time last year, which has been the trend all year. Oh, okay. So prices have not gone down. No. Okay. So do you still want to wait? Well, I want to see if interest rates go down. Okay. Got it. Mr. and Miss Buyer, I want to let you know that we just got interest report. Interest rates dropped 0.5%. Pretty exciting, right? Yeah, that's great. So you're ready to buy? I want to wait to see what happens with the election. Okay. And then the election's over. Mr. and Miss Buyer, did your person win the election? Whatever. Okay, so you ready to buy? Well, I don't know. I want to go back to the prices thing. I don't want to buy during the holidays. I don't want to buy at the first of the year. Let's go back to interest rates. It's like waiters are going to wait forever. You got to figure out sooner. Are you a waiter or are you a buyer? A waiter or a seller? Waiters will wait forever. And when you find out they're a waiter, get rid of them. They're never going to change. They're never going to change. But here's the last note I had here on weeding out crappy leads. This is where we have to take some accountability with ourselves. Are we weeding out crappy leads because they're really crappy, or are we not communicating in the level that they want to be communicated? Let me give you an example. Well, they're a seller lead and I keep giving them the stats on how great it is to sell. Maybe that's not their concern. So instead of giving them stats and figuring out why aren't you selling, say, hey, Mr. Seller, obviously, you know, at this point, we know the market's pretty good in terms of prices and days on market to sell a house, but that's not the motivating factor for you. So I'm curious, what's holding you back? What is it that you need to see? What are you curious about? What questions do you have? You need to do that before you throw out a crappy lead because you just think they're not responding to the market stats. Questions on anything we went over today? All right. Was any of that helpful?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Very helpful.
All right, great. Great. All right, good. All right, well, there you go. So I said I was going to share some questions. Let me get it. Share some questions. These are just a sample.
I'm
You
gonna
know,
take Johnny's stuff right now.
there's 100 more, but I'm going to post this link in the chat box. I said when you get a contact, you got to maximize that contact. So keep asking them questions until they hang up the phone. Here's a link to some questions that you can ask just to give you some ideas.